All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I'm very excited. So we have Teri. Say your last name for me.
Arvesu.
Arvesu. Okay. I knew I was going to. Actually, I think I had it right. And so you're the vice president of content at Univision
Chicago.
Chicago. Okay.
Mhm.
Great. So tell us what you're up to today.
Oh my gosh, what am I up to today? This is day 2 after Blagojevich was released. So
Fascinating.
It's been a fun,
If you follow
interesting
any
couple of
Chicago
days.
politics.
Sure, we've got 4 newscasts a day. So I've been on the phone with the team for what feels like 24 hours.
Yeah. And did you have any notice that was happening, or it happened in real time?
No, it happened in real time.
Real time. Okay.
Yeah. The first thing that came out was like, I think it was ABC News was the first to report it.
Yeah.
And then we have a correspondent in Washington, and
Okay.
then started getting on the
Immediately
phone
you're
and
just on the phone. Okay.
Yeah, and then just moving everything around to be able to cover it as well as we could. Right?
Yeah.
His house. We were at his house, trying to
he had a press conference in front of his house.
piece
yesterday.
together.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and we had one of our reporters is like, I need to be at the airport. So he was there at 1:00 in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
Live on Facebook. It's
Yeah.
an incredible team who is totally dedicated. I mean, if I'm not calling them, they're calling me like, you need to send me. And I'm like, okay, hold on, let me move everything around. And thank God for that, because they helped me think about everything.
So are you on call pretty much 24/7 then in your role?
With news, you get used to it.
Yeah.
Where sort of life works parallelly with
Yeah.
the rest of with work, right? But I grew up in news, so this is a super normal lifestyle to me. Even
Yeah.
to the point where people say like, she doesn't ever take vacation, and because I never really disconnect. Because like, how do you
Yeah.
disconnect from news? I mean, there are days where I put everything away and say, there's too much.
Yeah.
Right? I need to walk away for a while
Yeah.
and sort of self-preserve. But you always kind of got like an ear to the ground in terms of if there's anything that needs to be done, or moved around. But, I think with time, hiring the right people
Yeah.
to surround you who will call you, like, if the phone rings, I know something's up.
Yeah,
Because if
yeah.
a text message, like, they know, yeah, she'll respond. Pretty close. I live with my phone all the time,
Yeah.
but they know. If I've gone on vacations and they really, really need me and the phone rings, I know that it's important.
So if you're on vacation and Blagojevich happens, are you like, oh, I want to be there? Or are you
It
like,
is so hard. Yes.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that this team, people love to say like, so you choose who, what gets covered and how it gets covered.
Yeah.
And no, like we have a whole team that does that.
yeah.
It isn't. There's an editorial process that exists, and in this case, like I was not here when Blagojevich was first was tried and incarcerated, so I wasn't the expert in the room. I was just trying to make sure, so I was probably the one saying like, okay, let's answer this question, because people don't remember it as much as
that's
you
a good
do.
point. Yeah.
So I was sort of that counterbalance in that sense of hey, don't assume people remember this part, and let's cover this angle and stuff like that. But I was relying more on the team to be the ones to drive the edit. They were more expert than I was on that, and that's okay.
Yeah. So is that part of your leadership style then? Get kind of smart people around you and let them do their thing? And
yeah, someone once told me, I mean, I try to get the best that I can. In many cases, I actually tell you that I think if you would say my leadership style, I always really try to make it work with the people that are in place.
Yeah.
I have a natural tendency to think that nobody wakes up in the morning trying to figure out how to mess things up.
Right.
Like
we
all wake up
good intent,
with an intention to want to do a good job, but something happens if the person is not performing. Something happens in the middle between that wake up time and having to execute, right? And so I first always look at myself and my leadership and say, or maybe the leadership before me, that maybe the right expectations haven't been put in place, or the right resources haven't been put in place, or the communication is not there. And then, slowly in some cases, you do realize that they're just kind of miscasted, and
not in the right role.
They're not in the right role. Yeah. And like, they know that too.
So they're in pain too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, it's a very natural and nurturing process to be able to say to somebody, hey, like, we've tried everything, but it's really not going. Like, are you happy? Do you want to do this? And sometimes you'll learn that people really don't want to do that. And so you sort of help them find their way. That's not a bad thing, I mean, it's always like so taboo. But if you approach things that way, that people have an inherent right to be happy.
Yeah.
and that you get to be a part of that process. I think most of my separation from any employee have always been like, they've been pretty amicable
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, okay, you treat them with dignity like any human being deserves,
Yeah.
no matter what. For some people, it's a painful process because, maybe they're a little older or they haven't really found what that other thing
Yeah.
is. They just know they shouldn't be here. And so, it just helps me sleep better at night to know
Yeah.
that my values drive the relationship, even in the bad times. Or I
Yes.
hope they always do. I mean, I try.
Yeah. So you're able to have those uncomfortable conversations when needed.
I feel like they do because I think when I don't know at what point in my life or my career did that switch sort of happen,
Yeah.
but I think there's a genuine interest on my part that I like to help people succeed.
Yeah.
And sometimes helping people succeed means showing them the door or helping them find the door,
Or giving
but
them
at the
feedback,
same
yeah.
time, or giving them feedback. And when that trust exists between you and that employee, I think it's taken in a different way. It's like, I really want this for you, right? I think it's been actually harder for me to realize that sometimes I have wanted things for other people more than they've wanted it for
Yeah.
themselves. And that's where when we start hitting, your head
Yeah.
against the wall. And
When
you're
they could do it, but maybe they're not,
or
or
maybe
yeah.
they don't want it.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not as ambitious, or they're not, this isn't really what they want, even though you want it for them.
Yeah.
So that's been an important lesson, I think, for me, is to come to grips with and actually I say it all the time to them. Like to those people, they'll tell you, they'll be like, she told me, like, I can't want this more for you than you want this for
Yeah.
yourself,
Well, I think that's good too, because you don't want it to be a surprise to them. Like if
It should
something is
never
going to
be a
happen, yeah,
surprise.
they need to know kind of where they stand and what's expected. And
I think
that's
it's
good.
it's just as important the way you onboard somebody, the way
Yeah.
you exit someone, right?
Yeah.
Is just as important as how you onboard them. In fact, because these people are going to leave, and they may in some cases actually leave to somewhere else in the industry. So
Yeah.
they're going to be a stakeholder eventually, and they can either be your ambassador or your anti-ambassador.
Yeah.
And so I think you approach it in some ways with that intention and hope that they have the maturity as well to understand that. But I think if it's a very transparent process, those expectations and the performance, then it makes it a little bit easier. Like it's not a surprise.
Yeah. So you've been at Univision 16, 17 years?
I've been at Univision since 2003. So what does that make that?
17 years.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a long time.
And so what did you do before that and out of college? I'd love to hear the origin story.
Well, we're gonna go way, way, way back into the
Stop
dinosaur
it. No,
age.
stop.
So
I was just talking to somebody who was talking about Y2K, so I'm like, I totally get it.
well, actually, it was before that. So when I'm originally from Miami. My parents are
Love
Cuban
Miami.
immigrants who came in the 60s when they were about 6 and 8 years old.
Okay.
And so eventually they met in Miami. My father, with a pit stop in Puerto Rico. My father went to Puerto Rico and then went to Miami. And then, so grew up in Miami. And when I was I always knew, thanks to my mom, really, who understood that I had a talent for, one, I loved politics. I used to watch it as a kid and debate. Apparently, I have no idea what I could have debated on or if there was any substance to what I said. But I just naturally gravitated to that, to weather. Being from hurricanes, I used to sit there hours watching just
That's so
weather
funny.
coverage.
Is there
I loved
video
it.
of this, by the way?
Of me watching it? No, probably not. But I also love to write and I love to read.
Yeah.
So my mom pretty early on realized that maybe a career in journalism would be something cool. So
Smart of her. Yeah.
yeah, she was, and exposure is so key. So my mom had a friend who's now actually in Chicago, and I always like laugh with her, and I tell her, I'm like, you're the reason I'm in you're the reason I'm in TV. She's a woman.
Yeah.
Marianne Murciano.
Oh, yeah. Grew up watching. Yep.
Okay, so Marianne was she's originally from Miami, went to grade school with my mom, and she was the morning anchor on the Fox station in the morning. And my mom called her up and said, hey, can I take Teri? And I mean, they knew each other, but they weren't great friends. So that moment in Marianne's life probably was like a blink. Like she didn't even remember that she made such an impression or gave me the access to something that would inspire and give me so much direction in my life. And so, I mean, I remember sitting in the studio, and when you're a kid, all is the anchor, right?
Yeah.
Like
that had to be cool though.
The
As
only
a kid,
job. Oh, it was super cool.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that I was in the studio and I was like, this is so boring. And then they took me to what I learned was a control room.
Okay.
And there was someone sitting there with a pair of headsets and saying a lot of things and probably bossing a lot of people around. And I was like, I don't know what she does, but I want to do what she does.
People
and that
are
was
listening.
a line producer. So, sort of paved the way in journalism on the high school. I was on my high school newspaper, when I was 15 years old, asked for a video camera instead of what, Latina girls or Hispanic girls sometimes have quinceañeras.
Yeah.
No sweet 16.
No fancy
I
dress.
had a camera. No. That was what I wanted to do. I mean, I've been pretty hyper-focused my whole life. And so
I'm still figuring out what I want to do. So I love when I meet people that knew, like, from an early age.
You know what? It was a gift, but I will tell you, there is a point that came in my career, and I'm probably there now, where it's like, is this their 2.0? Right?
Oh,
like,
interesting. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm open to that. So my mother, who had a friend, my mother knows everybody. In Miami, you're either cousins with us or you know my family, because that's how the Cuban connection is, you know? And had a friend whose mom used to produce a show, a telethon at the Telemundo station in Miami, and needed some extra hands and help, which apparently the title is associate producer, which was like basically help do everything and coordinate, right? And so I was spring break junior year when mom asked me, hey, do you want to do this? They'll pay you, whatever. I'm like, yeah, sure. So I was working out of the television station there. And I met a woman who would become ultimately one of my mentors, and probably my first mentor ever. And she said to me, I was 16 and we used to always go have coffee together. And she said to me, do you want to come back in the summer and do an internship? And I was like, I got home and I was like, Mom, how do internships work? Like, do you get paid? Or, like what?
I feel like they weren't as popular back in the day as they are today.
Oh, no. And they didn't pay you. Yeah. And so, and then that was fine. And my mom's answer was one that I think has had like a profound it's sort of been that same message throughout my whole life, which is like, I don't know, but you say yes to everything.
Oh,
and so
smart.
That
really
has
great
been
advice.
like, say yes to everything. Be like, remember that movie, Yes Man? Like, just open when you open yourself to the world, and you open. And in my case, I like to think that it's sort of like God's plan, right? Yeah. When you open it and you're like, I don't really understand what's going on, but I'm going to work my butt off. Yeah. I'm going to, lean into any opportunity that comes my way. I'm going to discern those opportunities and just lean into them in full force with a commitment and passion. Then the rest of everything else kind of fits together. I don't know. Like, that's how my career has been. So, learned every job that summer that nobody else wanted to do. Yeah. So when it came time to go back for senior year in high school, they said to me, do you want to keep on coming back and doing some of this stuff? And I was like, as long as I could go. So here I was a Catholic school girl who wore her uniform and would go after school there. And it was like, I've always looked very young. So I'm like, must have looked like 10 years old walking in and like, producing paid programming, whatever. Yeah. Nobody wanted to do that and they left it on me. And so it was great. For me, it was super exciting.
And what were your friends up to at that time? Were they like...
They were going to South Beach and hanging out at South Beach. And I really wasn't. Like, at that point, I said, this is an opportunity that is an opportunity of a lifetime. It was a trip. Honestly, it wasn't difficult. It wasn't like I was making a huge sacrifice. I sitting on the beach all day long, going mind numb or hanging out at a club till super late, to me was not as exciting
not enough.
As being there. And so senior year that year, it was the day of our Christmas. Well, it was a Christmas formal, right? The time came, somebody had asked me, it was the first Summit of the Americas that Clinton put together at the Port of Miami, and they needed help. They needed a freelancer. So I was like, I'm not going to that Christmas formal. Instead, I was in jeans and, who knows, a sweatshirt in the Port of Miami watching these presidents of Latin America, right? Which I had studied all of them. I had all their pictures up in front of me and I had to log tape, right? It wasn't it wasn't a glamorous job, but the exciting thing of it was like,
just being there.
Oh my God, this is like a historical moment and I'm here. And I really loved that part about being on the front end of news, right? Like when it's happening as opposed to receiving it as a viewer, no? So, just ended up getting into college, stayed in Miami because the opportunities just, I kept great relationships at the TV station. They'd call me back for tons of stuff. Like, hey, you want to do this, that? So that was on the creative services and community relations side. That was all one department. But I wanted to do an internship in the news department. So day one of my internship is the day after the Value Jet plane crashed into the Everglades.
Oh, gosh.
And so they're like, you want to go? And I'm like all preppy with my little polo shirt and like little moccasins and like, jeans.
Which are back in style, by the way. My daughter wears them.
She should wear them. If
Yeah.
you wore it once, then don't wear it again.
Yeah.
That's the rule, Otherwise you look kind of like out of style or too old to wear that, right? So went out and spent, that was super exciting to be out there. And then, one thing led to the other, kept those relationships going and working as a freelance. Because again, in the news department, I learned everything nobody else wanted to do, and was like, every time they asked me, just said, yeah, I'll do it. Like they'd call me up, hey, so-and-so called in sick. You want to come in? Yeah, I'll do it. You know?
Like a utility player. Yeah.
Pretty much. And so then finally, my first full-time job was with the network, because they had launched a show. They called me up. I was in college. I was, the first time they called me, I couldn't do it because my classes were in direct conflict with the hours.
That's kind of a tough.
For me, my diploma, getting my diploma was super important.
Are you first gen college student?
No, actually, I'm not.
Okay.
To be honest with you, I'm third generation.
Oh, nice. Okay.
My grandfather was a civil engineer, and both my parents have master's degrees.
Amazing. I was going to ask about your parents, by the way. I wanted to hear what they did.
Yeah, they set the bar really damn high for me. I mean, it hasn't been easy to keep on going from there. But, and that's kind of the way we grew up, was you had to take it to the next step,
level, right?
And especially coming to this country where they came as refugees.
Yeah.
They were poor. My family came to this country not for a better life. It was for freedom.
Yeah.
And actually for a worse life.
Yeah.
At that point, right? They had to go to the shelters and be like given food. My grandmother can do a million things with Spam and like peanut butter, right?
Yeah.
Because she's like, oh my God, that's what they used to give us at the shelter all the time, until finally they got their bearings and they moved up, and they were professionals. So found jobs and started businesses, and their kids went to school, and that was the non-negotiable. You had to go to school.
Yeah.
So hence why I never took that job at the beginning.
Yeah.
They called me back again, and I was able to take it, and I got my first full-time job with the network as an assistant producer. And I've never been content with doing just what I was told to do. I always wanted to learn the next job, which has always been, I think, something super, I think it's been helpful, because later on, many, many years later, I learned that, men are often promoted because of their potential, and women are often promoted more because of their accomplishments, right?
Yep.
And so in order to, I'm Latina, I'm, a female, I look super young.
Yeah.
I am young. I was young, because I always felt like I needed to like really overperform in order for people to sort of visualize me in that position, right? For that next step.
That's the reality, yeah.
So, so then I was with the network, grew a little bit, kind of impatient about the fact that I had spent a long time being just an assistant producer, and felt like I wasn't taken seriously to really become a producer, even though I was filling in, but I wanted to do it full time. Ended up applying for law school, got in, and then decided, they called me. This is actually a funny story. I had a friend who was in law school, while at the time I had passed by the television station just to say hi, because I always kept really great contacts with everybody there. And they're like, hey, we're launching a new morning show on the network. Are you available? And I'm like, well, I'm about to start law school.
Oh my gosh.
And so they're like, let's talk. Another woman said, let's talk. So we did. And she offered me at the time, I think it was like, I want to say it was $45,000, something like that, right?
Which is not too shabby at the time.
Yeah. And she said to me, and I called my friend who had graduated from law school, and I'm like, hey, how much money are you making? And he's like, 45. And I go, oh, hell no. You know what? I'm going to go into because eventually I always wanted to have studied entertainment law or something that would build upon my career. I just thought I got to burn some years here to be maybe taken more seriously or something. So ended up going, and we launched the morning show with the network. And then, eventually I got my master's. I had finished my bachelor's, and then eventually I went back and got my master's degree in management. And so then, but the point in which I went from network to local was right after we had launched the morning show. I had kept all my friends from the local television station. We were all housed in the same building, network and local. So they needed a producer for their midday show. And I took the jump. and fell in love with local news. I love
Oh,
local
cool.
broadcasting.
Yeah.
Those were the hours of weather I was watching when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Those were that local connection for me was what had really solidified this love for television and for broadcasting, right? So being back in that was where I really have always wanted to be.
Yeah. It almost had to be surreal at first, like, holy cow, I'm here. And
Oh, I think my whole life has been
Yeah.
surreal, to be honest with you. I mean, again, because you know what, when you sort of take the jump and you just
Yeah.
hold your breath and you say, God, I believe in you, and
yeah.
let my faith carry me, my faith and my work ethic carry me through. And then he will find the way, even when
Yeah.
I don't understand it sometimes, then it just works out, right?
Yeah.
And so did that. Eventually, at that point, they wanted to launch the morning show. We launched the morning show, at the first Spanish language morning show on the Telemundo Miami station.
Very
Then
cool.
launched their weekend news as
So
well.
all Spanish.
All Spanish. And then and then at which point then Univision the opportunity came up to go
Yeah.
run Univision, to go be the producer for the 6 p.m. newscast at the Univision station. The Univision station was the number one station
Okay.
in the market, regardless of language. So a general manager, who is also one of the other ones on the list that it was a mentor,
Yeah.
had gone from the Telemundo station to Univision, and we connected, and he's like, why don't you come over? And I was like, yeah. So went and did that. It was
Yeah.
great. I did that for about 6 or 7 years, and then I started getting a call from another television station. I won't say what it is. It was English language, and I was 5 months pregnant, and I was like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't know why I want to do this now. I'm
Yeah.
already going to be so
It's a
overwhelmed.
lot.
It's my
Yeah.
first kid, and I sort of made what maybe constitutes a mistake, but it's not. What was I told my boss at the time,
Yeah.
and him, the man I told you that he was a mentor, and
Yeah.
I said, look, they're calling. I'm kind of curious. I want to see what's up,
Yeah.
And he came in and he said, he's like, I don't care what you want to do, but you're going to be my next executive producer. So, and I was like, okay, so what? You can't say no. I could never say no to him. To his name is Louis. I could never say no to Louis. I say today, I
Yeah.
followed Louis from Telemundo to Univision, and I'd follow him to the moon if I had to, because he's just one of those great leaders, that you just admire. And so it was like, I can't tell Louis no. And
Yeah.
I was like, are you sure about that? I'm 5 months pregnant. Like, are you crazy? And he's like, no, which I think is very odd. You don't see that.
Yeah.
Women who are 5 months pregnant getting the promotion.
Yeah.
So it
for
takes
sure.
a special man, I think, to recognize that talent and to take that jump, right? Because he never knew. He knew me since I was young, but I don't know that he knew enough about what is Teri going to be like.
Yeah.
as a
What you
mom.
want to be. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm grateful that he took that chance. He and the person that was my news director, because he was a part of that decision too, Emilio, took the chance on me, and I was always like, look, you know what? My kids are my problem. I was always afraid to be seen as like I was distracted. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Not that they ever made me feel. On the contrary,
Right.
they were great dads.
I think
They
a
were
lot
like,
of moms feel like
you
that. Yeah.
go and you leave, and Teri, if you need to go. And they say, like, they tell me, they're like, hey, so and so, as their children started to age, they're like, I'm going to a basketball game, and I'm like, you go, don't worry, I got you.
Yeah.
Like you got to do this. Like, I love that they were those type of dads, because it felt like I had a little bit of freedom too every now and then.
Yeah.
I never took advantage of it, because I was always afraid to look like I was distracted.
Right.
But to say, like, hey, I can do this if I needed to. You know?
Yeah. You got to have that. They always have things during the day too. I feel like the
Right?
schools and yeah.
They do. And I think I moved up, enough to create that enough clout to make, or maybe
Yeah.
a reputation, not clout, but reputation to
Yeah.
say,
Your performance
know
isn't
what?
going to suffer.
let that
Yeah.
answer for who she is. Like, I'm on all the time. I work a lot. Like,
Yeah.
there's no question about my commitment to what we do, because it's not even just a job. It's almost like I say, it's like a
Yeah.
vocation.
Yeah,
If you're
yeah.
in news, So then 6.5 years ago, or maybe even almost 7 years ago, the news director position in Chicago opened up. And I went to my news director at the time and said to him, hey, what do you think? And he's like, you're ready, go for it. And I was like, are you sure? I mean, this is like my work husband.
Yeah.
It was like a divorce. It was so hard. And he was so generous with me and, helped me.
It's a good leader
prep
though
for
to
that.
not hold you back. And
Totally,
yeah.
right? Like, I look back and I know how hard it was, because we talked all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, and when you stay behind, it's always the harder.
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
little bit harder.
Yeah.
I feel like he's like, Teri, it's like a divorce. I'm like, I know, I'm so sorry. But I'm forever grateful for having someone like that. And I had other people who helped me along the way too.
Sure.
At that point, the women's leader, we had launched the Women's Leadership Council at Univision. There's a woman who today is the chief marketing officer. Actually, no, she's a COO now and chief marketing officer
nice.
of Univision. And she just saw me in a room and was like, I don't know what she saw, but she saw something. And she saw things I didn't see in myself.
Yeah.
And together, she brought me into the WLC for us to build that together. We didn't know each other from before.
Yeah.
And then she helped her and a couple of the other women who were part of the core team that had launched the WLC helped me to negotiate what to ask for when I came to Chicago, which I was like, wait, you can ask for that? And I can. I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing.
And people expect you to ask for things and negotiate, which I think is
they kind of do.
And if you don't, they're like,
well, she's right?
Yeah.
Like she's undervaluing herself, or she doesn't think she's that good.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. That's a great point. They helped me prep for this, and I ended up getting the job. Worked for a wonderful general manager at the time here, and then since then have worked for another general manager who also has had enough vision, thank God, to see, and sort of gave me this new role, which was VP of content, right?
Yeah.
Which was like, at first was like super intimidating because it's like, well, his name is Doug Levy. And I'm like, well, what does this actually mean, Doug?
Was it a new role or was it?
Oh yeah, it was totally invented.
Okay.
Totally titled. Nobody.
Which is a blessing and a curse. Yeah.
Oh no, there's this black hole. Go make it work. Don't mess it up.
Oh
right?
geez, yeah.
I was like, okay, but what it did was to really help me understand how to think like an owner. The fact that I wasn't strapped anymore only to the newsroom, and that I could peek over the wall and look at, community, what we did with the community, which a lot of it was seeping into news anyways.
Yeah.
And what we could do, with sales, hold on a second, and creative services, our promotions department, and see how there's sort of these they interact. There's sort of a safe place where I think where content and community, and I call it cash, so I call it the 3 C's.
Yeah.
Right? The 3 C's sort of come together in a very safe place. We can underwrite initiatives for the community that feel right.
Yeah.
And we can make our numbers as well as service the community and get great content that empowers our community. That sort of became sort of the beginning of point 2 of 2.0 for Teri. Because I never really felt that I wanted to be anything past being a news director.
Yeah.
And so I participated in a program which was the National Association of Broadcasters, who have a broadcast leadership training. And it is one of the most amazing programs. The woman who heads that up is like, I literally call her a modern day saint, because, when people are generous with their learnings and they sort of pull back the curtain, that is how you make it.
Yeah.
Right. And I've had, this woman, her name is Diane Sutter. Diane owned a television station in Abilene, Texas. And while she was sitting in the middle of nowhere, after having been the head of a station group or whatever, she sat there and realized that most people don't get a line of sight into how to own the business behind the business.
Yeah.
And when you know that, you can be really good at what you do, because you see the intersection and you kind of know how to straddle both sides
and why decisions
in
are
a
being
very
made.
safe place.
Yeah.
Right. And so Diane created that program. And as I was sitting in the room, it was such an amazing thing. I think, as a journalist, we always look at ourselves and sort of make sure that our own biases are not seeping in. Like, I do a lot of that, or try to have that self-awareness, right? Like, where you're saying something and then you sort of observe yourself, and you're saying and you're observing. And that comes with the training that I had in management school, right?
Yeah.
Which was not just acting, but observing at the same time as you're acting, right? Those biases that I recognize some of those biases, or try to. I don't remember why I was saying that to you, but it'll come back to me later. But anyways,
about the lady from Abilene.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
And so, I remember sitting there, and I had always said I didn't want to be a general manager. I loved the content part, but the role of VP of content, and then going and having that permission to look across, the departments and see whatever, and realizing that my job, because I had such good journalists on the ground, this is a team that is their experience. It's Chicago. This is the 3rd largest market in the United States. It is the best city by far for journalism. It teaches you you learn here
instantly
the way government works, or sometimes doesn't
yeah,
work.
right.
Like you just the ins and outs, right? Like you can look at a budget and you actually know like what they're talking about in a council meeting, and it's like, oh my God, you know, like that. I don't know that happens everywhere, right? But it's sort of, so anyhow, I had thought that that's what I had wanted. That's what I want to do. And as I'm sitting in that room, coupled with the opportunity of looking across the aisle as VP of content, I began to realize that my job was really more about subsidizing the great work that these journalists could do. And that became a new fuel for me, right? It wasn't just out there running around breaking the news and chasing after it, but it was working with sales to find the opportunity to maybe underwrite something. We don't have the money right now. We're an industry that isn't just disrupted, right?
Yeah.
You know, we're not just going to cut a $100,000 check to do some community initiative. And so finding that community was really cool. And then doing that program of NAB, which I had only really gone into it to be better in the VP of content. And I didn't really know what that was. So I was it was part of me trying to figure out what to do.
The yes woman.
Yeah, I'm the yes woman, exactly. That then as I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my God, I masked fear with disinterest. Because as Diane's sitting there and walking us through like, you know, balance sheets and financial, you know, documents,
the non-sexy
and P&L.
part. Yeah.
And well, it was sexy because see that's the crazy part. I never thought that was sexy.
Yeah.
But numbers
But when you dig
tell
into
stories,
it is, it
which
can
is
be
what I love to do, was tell stories. So it was like, oh wait, these numbers on these, you know, balance sheets actually tell a story, and I can find that story. And this is investigating and digging. And I was like, well, you know what? Maybe I want to be a part of the solution that fixes or what are in the crisis in our industry.
Yeah.
And how better than somebody who's been boots on the ground and then has sort of forged forward on the business side to learn, you know, both sides, right?
Is that typical for somebody to be a producer and then go into management, executive management?
You usually go producer, you know, like producer, then you go executive producer, then news director, and then oftentimes it sort of stops there.
Yeah.
You know, nowadays everything is content, so that also straddles digital and TV. And in our case, we have radio here. I don't oversee radio, but I work very, very closely because it helps us to amplify our resources and like, you know, just do a better job if I can tap into maybe a DJ to do something or, so you don't really see news directors go past that point. In some companies, they end up doing that where, you know, then you can go into the GM position, but you really have to go above and beyond, I think, to really learn the business part of it.
It's because it's a whole nother side of it, to your point. Yeah.
The sale, you know, sales is usually you see sales go into general manager positions.
Yeah.
On my side, it's not that it's not unheard of, but I think you have to put in that extra to be able to like do your full-time job and then go learn all the other stuff. So, you know, I don't know that I did it with the intention of ever wanting that next step.
Yeah.
I did it because I was genuinely just curious and thought I'd be better at my job the more I knew about the business. But yeah, you know, maybe that's the 2.0. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you talked a little bit about the industry is in the middle of being disrupted. So why is content so important and what you do so important?
Well, that's our bread and butter. That's what we sell. That really is our currency.
Yeah.
But that's what we sell. You go to Starbucks for coffee, you go to Univision for a very specific type of news with, you know, what we offer is really that bilingual perspective that you know we that speaks very directly to a very specific audience. Yeah. That doesn't always necessarily see themselves reflected everywhere else, right? There is the Spanish only, but there's also this bilingual part about how you live two worlds. Yeah. And that understanding that I think really permeates within the work that we do is, you know, just yesterday, one of my anchors did something on the census as an explainer or whatever, and talks about, for her, the first thing she thinks about when she thinks about the census that might not occur to somebody who is not Hispanic is that our audience doesn't want to open the door. Because why? Because they're afraid, right? Like you have homes, some homes have mixed, documented, maybe undocumented. Yeah. There's a trust factor, like who is this person and why are we opening the door to them? You know, now with Trump, there is fear within the community in general to participate in this type of stuff, because what type of information am I giving, and what's the purpose of it, and all that other stuff. Whereas for other folks, maybe they wouldn't even think about that.
Right,
but see,
right. Yeah, totally. I totally would not have thought about that, but now that you're saying it, it makes total sense. Yeah.
So that really is like kind of our brand,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Not kind of, it is our brand.
Yeah.
It is this very specific understanding of our audience, not just from gut, but like research that we do. We are in constant communication. That's what I love about local, that you could, part of your research is the woman calling on the phone.
Yeah.
And you get to talk to her,
Yeah.
And like, that's so special because it puts a face or a voice to the person who you serve. Which I don't know that on network you get that. Unfortunately. No.
And you mentioned the triangle: content, community, and cash. So can you say a little bit more about the community part? You touched on it a little bit, but.
So, I mean, here at Univision, that really plays a very, very important role, is the community part.
Yeah.
For
and I
us,
love how Chicago is very diverse.
Oh, no, Chicago's great with in that respect.
Yeah.
We're like a natural fit, because Chicago, I mean, I learned this when I got here, that social work was created. The position of social work was created in Chicago.
Did
And I
not
thought
know that.
that explains so much about who the fiber, the DNA of Chicagoans. It's one of the things I've come to fall in love with Chicagoans, right? Is like, what's trendy is helping each other. That is so cool, right?
Yeah.
Like,
be a good person. Yeah.
like be a good person, help your neighbor. That is really what is, I don't care what's in the news, nationally, that is who Chicagoans are, right?
Yeah.
Hardworking, modest and humble. And on top of that, just like this keen sense of community and of taking care of each other. And it's so awesome. But at Univision, it's interesting because this is a company, not every television station was created for this reason, right? Which is first with a mission, and then it sort of became a business, right? Like we were, at the core of who we are is that we had to serve a community that was underserved. There was a mission first, and then they built a business around it, right? So for us, it is, like, it's not just a mission statement that you say from like, you internalize it. It's not like how we say in Spanish, de la boca para afuera, from my mouth out. Yeah. It's actually in everything we do. Like every story we choose is always about either empowering or informing. Like there's an entertaining part about it, but that's more like the network stuff. But like we, in our newsroom, it's constantly like, well, but what's the news you can use part of it? Like, why are we don't want to just exploit this person's story. Like, what do we take away? How do we use this to teach? To the people say, you know what, I'm a smarter person because I watch this newscast.
Yeah,
like, that's
I like that. Yeah.
That trust and the fact that they're a smarter person because they watch. And everybody in my newsroom, it's like, I don't know, they must do it in their sleep, because it's not like I have to even force it that much. Yeah. It's always there. So
what is the mission statement then?
So our mission statement here, well, we have an internal one. I don't know if I can say it yet.
Okay. But the Univision
because
one.
We're working, but the mission, but the Univision one is about entertaining, empowering, and informing the Latino community. Right?
Yeah, perfect.
And that Latino community has a lot of layers. It's not just what we think of as grandma, the Spanish grandma sitting at home. No, like it's about me as almost a second generation Latina who still feels this incredible connection to her culture and doesn't get it sometimes in other places. Yeah. Music and sports, especially soccer, for our community is like, an initial connection. For me personally, news that is sensitive to those, to my country of origin. Maybe not so much here in Chicago because I'm Cuban. So I do serve more the Mexican community. They are 80% of our audience. So we're not going to be doing everything for Cuban Americans, right? I mean, that just wouldn't be smart. It's not part of our mission. Yeah. It's a small part of it because it's everybody. I don't want to sound like I'm like exhalating one or the other, but it really is more Mexican. So, you just, that's sort of the mission is to carve out a space because nobody else is. Yeah. For their stories, for them to, in a way that takes into consideration those nuances.
Yeah,
like the
absolutely.
census,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And so why is it important to you to give back to the Latino community? Because I know you're involved at DePaul and you set up some programs there. We know each other from the Dean's Advisory Council, and you're always advocating for diversity. And I actually love that. And you're always like a boss in the meetings and outspoken and fighting for what you believe in with passion and classiness. And honestly, I mean, so why is that important to you though?
So, when you grow up in Miami, the interesting thing is that you're born as the majority, right?
Yeah.
You have somebody once told me, you're majority complex. So this is really, I will tell you, I wasn't as passionate about this when I was in Miami because I didn't have a need to.
Yeah.
But when I come here to Chicago, well, my boss will tell you she loves the fight, and that is true. My favorite part about my job is not just the craziness and the adrenaline, but is the advocacy.
Yeah.
I love the fact that I can challenge stereotypes, right?
Yeah.
Like, people say, in Miami, I grew up and we were considered white. And here I learned at 35 that I was brown.
Okay.
And it's so funny to me because labels are kind of a funny thing in that respect. And so the other day I said to somebody, I'm brown in Chicago and I'm white in Miami. And I assure you that I don't change colors mid-flight,
Yeah, right.
So I think it's about education. Again, I also, like I said to you at the beginning of the interview, I always see the best in people. And I always think that people have good intentions.
Yeah.
Maybe it's totally ignorant, whatever makes me happy-go-lucky, but it is what it is, right?
No, that's a great perspective.
I think people want to understand diversity, but they don't know how to engage.
I agree.
In a safe space.
And then sometimes the conversation gets volatile almost, and then people for sure are not going to ask questions or, yeah.
But here's the thing, like there's a white Teri and there's a brown Teri. So I can understand both sides.
Yeah.
And I think that I have come with the intention not of winning the fight, but of educating and improving the dialogue, right?
Yeah.
So when you do that, it's like any fight. If you get into a fight and you into a discussion to win rather than to come to an agreement, it's a very different dynamic. So my intention is always for it to come to elevate the conversation.
Yeah.
Guess what? I'm also here, so I'm a woman of color, right? Here in Chicago, I'm a woman of color. I have my own biases. I have a lot of educating. I have to be educated too on other things that other people have to offer. So this is not just me schooling everybody about diversity.
Right.
This is about a lot of listening too and understanding other people. Oh, so I'm always just genuinely curious about people. So that's why probably part of the story, right?
Yeah.
The stories I love as a journalist.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that, we talked about stereotypes. The stereotypes that exist, and the same thing happens with women. It's like if the female image of leadership, if the image of leadership is not female, right? It doesn't, maybe the next generations after us do.
Right.
But when we think leader, unfortunately, we don't always think woman.
Right.
We think a man in a suit and he's tall and he's like white. And that's what we saw for so long, and it's ingrained in us. That I love challenging the fact that I am white skinned, that I am educated, that I'm not the first one that went to college. I'm the third generation that went to college. And you know what? Then that challenges a lot of assumptions that people might have about the Latino population. And I love to put myself in that because I'm like, you don't understand us yet. We're so dimensional.
Yeah.
We're as dimensional as anything else. There's it's class, it's religion, it's gender, it's all that stuff. And so these labels and these boxes need to go away just to understand each other as human beings.
Right.
As opposed to what's on the outside. Because guess what? I'm white in Miami and I'm brown here, right? So
and why are you considered white in Miami? I'm just curious, just because it's more Cuban.
Look at the color of my skin.
So it's a literal translation of.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Your skin is just whiter. Like if you don't tan, even people that tan in Miami are considered white. They just tan better. I just don't. I don't tan.
Gosh,
I just get myself more. I just get more freckles.
Okay.
On my body. That's it, right? Or a really bad sunburn.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
It's intriguing to me, and some people here would be like, ha, and they laugh, and I'm like, I don't know what they're laughing about and I'm not insulted by it. It's just the reality of this is what different life experiences do to you.
Yeah.
They build up, either an image of who you can be.
Yeah.
And in my world, that what you could be was you were going to be a college graduate.
Yeah.
You were going to get your master's degree. Like you better start planning the PhD. You were going to be successful. You were going to be all this. And so what I say is these stereotypes that get pushed down on us, of what, or of to Latinos, right? In order to sort of put us in sort of a box, right? Or give some order to to society. I don't know.
Yeah.
We get to challenge that, right? Like those assumptions, there's a lot of assumptions I've had to overcome myself because remember, I grew up white in Miami.
Yeah.
So I know both sides. So it's very safe for me to talk about those things because it comes from a very like genuinely curious and humble perspective that there's a lot of things I don't know, regardless of what color you are.
Yeah.
Right. And I can give some perspectives on both sides.
I like that. And I think the more we talk and communicate, the more similar we are than different.
Yeah.
So last question. Any advice for women or Latinos coming up in the news business? I know you're involved a lot at DePaul and the broadcast programs there.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that. So I think there's a couple things that sort of permeate from my own experiences that I would hope people would take away from this, right? And that is being open and feeling that you deserve to be in the room.
Yeah.
Like even at 16, I felt like I deserved to be in the room.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't deserve to be in the room, but I felt like I was. That fearlessness.
Yeah.
And that sort of, I belong, right?
And I do feel that from you, by the way, when we're in meetings and things together. I do feel that. So I like that a lot, actually. And I think that even for women is just a big thing. They're constantly questioning and churning. And
for Latinos too.
Yeah.
And sometimes we haven't always been told that we belong.
Yeah.
So we need to own that we belong and get over, because sometimes we're our worst enemy, right?
Yeah.
Nobody else is telling us
right.
that
no
anymore,
one else is
and we're
thinking
still telling ourselves
right.
that. It's like, no, so there's that. So the openness to new experiences and fluidity, I think is so important too. I don't know what the 2.0 version is going to be, right?
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I think I have so much faith that whatever I've built till now is preparing me for that 2.0. And maybe there's still some more stuff I have to learn. That's why maybe 2.0 hasn't come yet, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe it did come and I didn't even know. They always say that, hindsight is 20/20. So maybe I'll see it then. Being open. The other thing is, exposure is key, right? The reason why I built out at the time, because it's not currently in place, but why I love having people come to the station.
Yeah.
Although lately I've been bombarded with field trips and I'm like, I can't anymore. I got to do my work. Is because of the gift that Marianne gave me. Yeah. Which was that exposure. I could fit, you can't dream about what you've never seen before.
Right.
And so forcing yourself beyond that, of course I get nervous. Like most people think all the time, they're like, oh, she's so confident. I'm like, girl, you don't know what's going on in there. Like you have no idea how difficult it is for me to just conjure up the courage, because the fear is always there.
Right.
But the courage to say, get over yourself, Teri. You do belong.
Right.
Get over yourself. Open your mouth. You're in here for a reason.
Yeah.
They want your opinion. That's why you were invited.
I literally do affirmations like that to myself, just so you know.
We have to remind ourselves constantly, that so exposure. And by that I mean particularly, if you could do an internship every single semester, I would have people do an internship.
I'd still be doing internships if I could.
I could still do them too. Me too. And there's a couple things to think about, which is one, you are getting the education so that eventually you can drive results. Yeah. Right. I think success is made up of results capital and human capital. For a long time, I used to think it's just about driving results, but network is so important. Really important. It really is important. You can't be all of one and none of the other. You know what I mean? Like it has to be a balance of both things, but it's results and human capital. Yeah. And so going to an internship, one is building your ability to get results eventually because you're learning. And two, you're building human capital. Yeah. So these people are the people. The way you get jobs is not always because some boss figured out you existed. A lot of times it's reference. Yeah. It's, hey, I know somebody, that hey, you've got an open position. I know somebody who'd be great for that position. And so give yourself the visibility, and the way to do that is really internships and also involvement. Involvement in like things like, especially for the Latinos and any government, any student association, but like NABJ, NAHJ, this is where you forge friendships. Yeah. And then you end up advocating for each other. Yeah. It also gives you the ability to show leadership outside of the norm, right?
Yeah.
You can work on a project that is a volunteer program.
And then that builds up your confidence. Yeah.
Yeah, because someone once said to me recently, says when you are feeling down, you should go do something that you're naturally good at, because when you build confidence in one area, it spills over into the rest of things. So if you're good and you, like, let's say, volunteer and you create this program, it sort of builds everything else out.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate all your
pleasure.
time and responses. And I'm excited for Teri 2.0. It'll be awesome. So
I'll keep you posted.
okay.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.